Pip! Only heard him cry once, but that's him, Pipkin. And he's trapped there in the catacomb." The boys stared, and they saw, 100 feet away, crouched down in a corner, trapped at the most distant part of the catacomb, a small figure that moved. The shoulders twitched. The head was bent and covered with trembling hands, and behind the hands, the mouth wailed and was afraid. "Pipkin?" The crying stopped. "Is that you?" whispered Tom. A long pause, a trembled insuck of breath, and then, "Yes." "Pip, for cry-yi, what you doing there?" "I don't know." "Come out." I can't. I'm afraid." "But, Pip, if you stay there—" Tom paused. "Pip," he thought, "if you stay forever. You stay with all the silence and the lonely ones. You stand in the long line and tourists come and look at you and buy tickets to look at you some more. You—" "Pip," said Ralph behind his mask, "you gotta come out." "I can't," Pip sobbed. "They won't let me." "They?" But they knew he meant the long line of mummies. In order to get out, he would have to run the gauntlet between the nightmares, the mysteries, the dreadful ones, the dyers, and the haunts. "They can't stop you, Pip." Pip said, "Oh, yes, they can." "Can," said echoes deep in the catacomb. "I'm afraid to come out." "And we're—" said Ralph. "Afraid to go in," thought everyone. "Maybe if we chose one brave one," said Tom, and stopped. For Pipkin was crying again, and the mummies waiting, and the night so dark in the long tomb hall that you would sink right through the floor if you stepped on it and never move again. The floor would seize your ankles with bony marble and hold you until the freezing cold froze you into a dry dust statue forever. "Maybe if we went in a mob, all of us," said Ralph. And they tried to move. Like a big spider with many legs, the boys tried to cram through the door. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Wept Pipkin, at which sound they all fell upon themselves, gibbering, and scrambled, yelling their dyers and frights back to the door. They heard an avalanche of heartbeats, bang, pains in their chests. "Oh, my gosh, what we gonna do? Him afraid to come, us afraid to go. What? Wailed Tom. Behind them, leaning against the wall, was Mound Shroud, forgotten. A little candle flame of smile flickered and went out among his teeth. "Here, boys, save him with this." Mound Shroud reached into his dark cloak and brought forth a familiar white sugar candy skull, across the brow of which was written, "Pipkin." "Save Pipkin, lads. Strike a bargain." "With who?" "With me and others unnamed. Here. Break this skull in 8 delicious bits, boys. Hand 'em round. P for you, Tom, and I for you, Ralph, and half of the other P for you, Hank, the other half for you, J.J., and some of the K for you, boy, and some for you, and here's the I and the final N. Touch the sweet bits, lads. Listen. Here's the dark deal. Do you truly want Pipkin to live?" Such a fury of protest burst forth at this, Mound Shroud was fair driven back by it. The boys barked like dogs against his so much as questioning their need for Pip's survival. There, he curried them. "I see you mean it. Well then, we'll each give 1 year from the end of your life, boys?" "What?" said Tom. "I mean it, boys. 1 year. 1 precious year from the far-burned candle end of your life. With 1 year apiece you can ransom dead Pipkin." "A year!" The whisper, the murmur, the appalling sum of it ran among them. It was hard to grasp. A year so far away was no year at all. Boys of 11 or 12 cannot guess at men of 70. A year? A year. Well, sure, why not? Yes. Think, boys, think. This is no idle bargain struck with nothing. I mean it. It is true and a fact. It is a grave condition you make and a grave bargain you strike. 1 year each of you must promise to give. You won't miss the year now, of course, for you are very young, and I see by touching your minds you cannot even guess the final situation. Only later, 50 years from this night, or 60 years from this dawn, when you are running low on time and dearly wish an extra day or so of fine weather and much joy, then's when Mr. D for doom, or Mr. B for bones, will show up with his bill to be paid, or perhaps I will come, old Mound Shroud himself, a friend to lads, and say, deliver. So a year promised must be a year given over. I'll say give, and you must give. What will that mean to each of you? It will mean that those of you who might have lived to be 71 must die at 70. Some of you who might have lived to be 86 must cough up your ghost at 85. That's a great age. A year more or less doesn't sound like much. When the time comes, boys, you may regret. But you will be able to say, this year I spent well, I gave for Pip, I made a loan of life for sweet Pipkin, the fairest apple that ever almost fell too early off the harvest tree. Some of you at 49 must cross life off at 48. Some at 55 must lay them down to forever's sleep at 54. Do you catch the whole thing intact now, boys? Do you add the figures? Is the arithmetic plain? A year. Who will bid 365 entire days from out his own soul to get old Pipkin back? Think, boys. Silence. Then speak. There was a long, brooding silence of arithmetic students doing inward sums. And the sums were very fast indeed. There was no question, though they knew that years from now they might doubt this dreadful haste. Yet what else could they do? Only swim out from shore and save the drowning boy before he sank a last time into a frightening dust. Me, said Tom. I'll give a year. And me, said Ralph. I'm in, said Henry Hank. And me, said all the rest. Do you know what you pledge, boys? You do love Pipkin, then? Yes, yes! So be it, boys. Chew and eat, lads, eat and chew. They popped the sweet bits of candy skull in their mouths. They chewed. They ate. Swallow darkness, boys. Give up your year. They swallowed hard, so hard that their eyes shone bright and their ears banged and their hearts beat. They felt something like a cage of birds let out of their chests and bodies and flying off, invisible. They saw, but did not see, the years they gave as gifts wing off round the world to settle somewhere in good payment for strange debts. They heard a yell. Here! And then, Aye! And then, Come! Bang, 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 the 3 words and 3 sounds of shoes hitting stone, and along the hall and between the rows of mummies which leaned out to stop but did not stop, between the silent shrieks and screams, hell-bent, rushing, racing, flinging his feet, pumping his elbows, puffing his cheeks, shutting his eyes, snorting his nostrils, and bang, bang, banging the floor with his up and down feet, came Pipkin. Oh, how he ran! Look at him come! Come on, Pip! Pip, you're halfway! Look at him race! Said everyone with sugar candy in their mouths, with the honorable name of Pipkin locked in their sweet teeth, with his savor in their jaws, with his fine name on their tongues. Pip, Pip, Pipkin! Don't stop now, Pip! Don't look back! Don't fall down! Here he comes 3/4 of the way! Pip ran the gauntlet. He was good and fine and fast and true. Between 100 waiting mummies he ran without touching and did not look back and won the race. Pip, you did it! You're safe! But Pip kept running, not only through the gauntlet of dead ones, but the gauntlet of warm, sweating, alive, yelling boys. He plowed them aside and raced upstairs, gone. "Pip! It's all right, come back!" They ran up the stairs after. "Where's he going, Mr. Moundshroud?" "Well, I should imagine, scared as he is," said Moundshroud, "home." "Is Pipkin saved?" "Let's go see, boys. Up." He spun about like a whirlwind. His arms, flung out, cut the air in slicing grabs and swoops. So fast he spun that he made a vacuum, a self-made storm. This cyclone, this huge upsuck of air, then seized the boys by ear, nose, elbow, toe. Like so many leaves stripped from a tree, they yelled themselves into the sky. Moundshroud, raving, sank up, and they, if that is possible, sank and plummeted after. They hit the clouds like an explosion of gunshot. They followed Moundshroud like a flock of north-rushing birds heading home before their season. The earth seemed to give a turn from north to south. 1,000 small villages and towns spun under, alight with candles in tomb yards through all of Mexico, alight with candles flickering in pumpkins north of the border across Texas, and then Oklahoma and Kansas and Iowa, and at last Illinois, and at last— "Home!" cried Tom. "There's the courthouse! There's my house! There's the Halloween tree!" They swooped once around the courthouse and twice around the 1,000-pumpkin-burning tree, and a final time around old Moundshroud's tall house with its many gables, many rooms, many gaping windows, high lightning rods, railings, attics, scrollworks, which leaned and groaned in the wind their passage made. Dust sifted out of windows to greet them. Shades flapped in yet other windows like ancient tongues lolling to be diagnosed by wind-borne small doctors of strange medicines. Ghosts withered like white flowers, furling and unfurling in mouldered flags which fell to ruin even as they shot by. And the whole house, circled, was like all of Halloween ever. So cried Moundshroud, flapping his antique arms and webs and black silks as he landed on the roof and beckoned the boys to alight and pointed down through an immense sky window through all the levels of his mansion. The boys gathered round the skylight window and stared down a stairwell which opened out at various floors to various times and histories of men, and skeletons and dreadful musics played on flute bones. "There it is, boys. Will you look? Do you see? There's our whole 10,000-year flight. There's our whole trip in one place, from caveman to Egyptian to Roman front porch to English harvest field to boneyard in Mexico." Moundshroud lifted the vast pane of glass. "The stairway banister, boys. Write it down. Each to his own time, his own age, his own level. Leap off where your costume fits, where you think you and your disguise, your mask, belong. Get!" The boys leaped. They sprang down the stairwell to the top landing. Then, one by one, they popped onto the banister and slid, yelling, down through all the floors, all the levels, all the ages of history kept within Moundshroud's incredible mansion. Round about down they whisked, they skidded, they shuffled on the waxed rail. Room! Thud! J.J. in his ape-man costume landed in the basement. He glanced about. He saw cave paintings, dim smokes and fires, and shadows of hulking gorilla men. Saber-tooths burned their eyes at him from the cindered dark. Down around Rush went Ralph, the Egyptian mummified boy, bandaged for all ages, to land on the first floor where Egyptian hieroglyphs strutted in armies of symbol, with squadrons of ancient birds in skies and